Hey everybody, welcome. Call this meeting to order, the board meeting for the Weisburn Unified School District for February 10th, 2022. This meeting will now come to order. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us in our community. Of course, our educators, our staff, and of course, the volunteer board members and cabinet here tonight. Nice to see you all again. We have a regularly scheduled board meeting tonight. Two special presentations. The first from a student at 138th Street on our food services survey they conducted, and a second special presentation regarding school metrics from our partners at Da Vinci Schools. Mr. Mora, glad to see you. Welcome, particularly in that I want to take a shout out and mention that this represents Mr. Israel Mora's final meeting with us. We will recognize his incredibly illustrious and contribution-rich career in one of our items tonight. In fact, along those lines, item 6.4, I would propose and ask for a motion to move the agenda by moving 6.4 to between items 3.2 and 3.3. That's from the public and before our special presentations. So we can in fact honor Mr. Mora as our first order of business after public comments. May I have a motion?
Dr. Bowman, you said after public comments, correct?
After public comments, yes.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
You have a second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Baki?
Mr. Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Caneda?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye.
All right. Dr. Harbeck, would you be so kind as to lead us in the flag salute?
My honor. Please stand up. Hand on our heart. And ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harbeck. We'll now move to public comments in a moment, or actually immediately, because there were no share your thoughts comments this period. I think that's the first time ever on our website. So I want to acknowledge those, but since there was none to share, we'll move right to public comments. A reminder to all who participate, we welcome your comments. By board bylaw and other acts, we're unable to respond, but we do hear you, we listen to you, and we will allow 3 minutes by board bylaws for you to comment. At the 2.5-minute mark, Mr. Baki will put up a red card that will let you know you have 30 seconds remaining. Mr. Baki, do we have any participants and people who would like to share in public comments?
We do. Let's bring over Dr. Paul Jimenez, please. Hi, Dr. Jimenez.
Hi.
Oh, Natalia, hello.
Not Dr. Jimenez, Natalia, his wife. Hi. Good evening. And happy Thursday. I just wanted to say that on behalf of my husband and I, we have 2 boys living here in Holly Glen for about 10 years. And we're really excited. Our older son, Pablo, will be starting kindergarten at Cabrillo this upcoming fall. And we're here because we wanted to share our support and enthusiasm for an after-school Spanish language program at Cabrillo. We'd love to see something similar to the Ni Hao Mandarin language program at De Anza. And we are willing to put in the time and energy to make it happen. We've started doing some research and I'm hoping to get your support with that. Prior to the pandemic, we helped spearhead the idea of a full-blown Spanish immersion program, but given the ongoing pandemic situation, we thought it would be more realistic to move forward with at least an after-school Spanish immersion program. A few years back before the pandemic, we did a quick informal survey of Weisburn community's interest in an immersion program, and we had about 60 responses in 3 days. About a quarter were interested in the Mandarin and 3/4 in Spanish, so we feel that there's definitely an interest there. So basically just wanted to share with the board that myself, my husband, and some other members of the community would be very interested and committed to putting in the time and energy to hopefully bring a Spanish after school program to Cabrillo so that our kids and the kids in the community could benefit from a program like that. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we could please bring over Miss Maria Rodriguez, please. Hi, Maria. You are on mute. There you go. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, board. My name is Maria Rodriguez, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Cabrillo and the mother of Maria Davalos, an 8th grade student at Dana Middle School. I want to apologize because I do not attend your meetings on a regular basis. However, with the meetings being on Zoom, perhaps you do not know who attends or who doesn't. So yes, I'm here at every meeting. Just kidding. Tonight, I'll be wearing both my teacher hat and my mom hat as I speak about Dana peer tutors. My daughter Maria has been watching Dana peer tutors since a young age, and having her mom as a teacher at Cabrillo, she has always looked forward to coming back to Cabrillo as a peer tutor. This year, the peer tutoring program was back in action, and the students led by Miss Engie got to visit the classrooms for the first time in October. Immediately after the first visit, the students were told that because of the pandemic, they would not be able to continue. The peer tutors were devastated. Since then, my daughter has been a TA for a science teacher because many electives were full. I am wondering if you could please allow these students to go back to tutoring in the classrooms again, as long as safety protocols are followed. As a teacher this year, we have had a shortage of aid support and no parent volunteers. Peer tutoring is a great resource for us. I come to you because Ms. Engie said that most principals are on board to having the program move forward and that it is the decision of the district. There are other in-person Dana programs that I really feel need to be considered to come back in person, like field trips to Knott's for honor roll awardees, the Marine program in Catalina for the 7th graders, 6th grade camp and the Washington, D.C. trip for 8th graders. These programs keep our students learning and motivated. As long as the surge is down and we follow safety protocols, our kids deserve to have these once in a lifetime experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we could please bring over Kelly Schumacher, please. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome.
Israel, I came on this evening to express my great gratitude for all that you have done as a school board member and for our school district. When you and Joanne were elected, and I still remember the party at Joanne's house where we used packing boxes as end tables, you ushered in just a new era to our school board, an era of integrity and transparency, of questioning, of wondering, of challenging the administration, the teachers, the parents, the students, and of really getting to know our funding practices, school board policies, but best of all, you ushered in an era where our school board is out and about and part of our community. I have great fond memories of you coming to Cabrillo's first few family literacy nights and staying with the reluctant parents who didn't want to say they needed to listen to the video in Spanish, but you're like, I want to hear Jaime Harin say it in Spanish. And you would stay with those parents. And then as we did the transition, have a lovely conversation in their native tongue and came up with the idea of, why don't you have the English speakers leave the room and we'll stay in the room with the Spanish speakers so they don't feel bad about listening to the video, and just all those wonderful things. So Thank you so much for all you've done. And I just wish you the best, and you can leave knowing that you leave a great legacy of ethical, positive, helpful work in our school district. So thank you so much, and best wishes to you and your family.
Thank you, Ms. Schumacher, very much.
Wow, thank you very much. Wow. Excuse me.
If we could please bring over Russell Kale. Hi, Russell. You are on mute.
There we go.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good evening, Weisburn board members and Weisburn administrators. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you tonight. When Mediatrix and I moved into Holly Glen 17 years ago, our youngest son hadn't gotten to school yet, but now he's a freshman at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And the job that you guys have done as board members and as administrators, and many of you are personal friends, I want to say thank you. And there's a very, very special thank you we need to make tonight. And that's the main reason I'm here. Israel, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. And I want you to know that the work that you've done is extraordinary and very, very, very much appreciated. Thank you. My children have benefited from it, and countless numbers of other children in the Weisburn Unified School District have benefited from it. So thank you very much, Israel. And I have one last question for you. How's your family?
They're very good. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Israel. Good night, everyone. Great to see you.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Russell.
Bye.
At this time, I do not have any further public comments. Oh, sorry, I do have one. If we could please slide over Maria Flores Acosta, please. Hi, Maria. You're on mute now. There you go.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here to give a thank you to board member Israel Mora. I've been a resident of Weisburn for 13 years and have seen many positive changes in our district, you know, from the switch over and the push to get us to become a Weisburn Unified School District, to have a high school, all the changes, you know, the newly built campuses. I really want to express my gratitude to board member Mora for all of his contributions to all of the positive changes in our community. Thank you very much, and I wish you well on all of your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and are there any other public comments? I believe that's all I have.
Well, thank you to all of our key, folks for joining us, sharing your thoughts, be they on your students, wishes for your students, certainly recognition for Mr. Mora, well-deserved, and the accolades will keep coming, Israel. So it's a humble night for you, but well-deserved. Along those lines, let's move to item 6.4 as we moved it earlier in our agenda to let me actually read this agenda item, which is adopt resolution number 21/22.15 honoring Israel Mora. Israel, it is not our customary tradition to have one of the board members read the resolution, but we thought it fitting that as you and Ms. Caneda started this journey together, that it would offer a nice bookends to you if, Joanne, you'd be so kind to read this resolution. But first we need a motion, please.
A motion.
Thank you. And I think, Roger, you wanted a second. You were on mute.
I'd love to second. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Joanne, do you need the resolution? Or
I have it.
Okay.
And knowing how much Israel loves long presentations, I have several pages of things that I'd like to read in his honor here this evening. And I'd love to read this, and I plan to, but Israel, before the resolution, know from my heart, and I'm not sure I can do this without crying, how much you mean to me personally and as a fellow board member. We've been friends, brother, sister, our families are close, continue to be close. And you as a person mean so much to me and have done so much for our district, for our community. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the friendship and the togetherness that we've had. That will not end. We'll miss you as a board member. I won't kick you under the table anymore, and I haven't been able to do that during COVID. So know how much I'm going to read this resolution from my heart, and know that how much you mean to me and your family as well. Okay. Weisburn Unified School District resolution honoring Israel Mora as a 20-year member of the Weisburn Unified School District Board of Trustees. How did it happen, Israel? 20 years. Resolution number 21/22.15. Whereas Weisburn Unified School District's current longest tenured school board member, Israel Mora, will be retiring from his position on the Board of Trustees effective February 11th, 2022. And whereas Mr. Mora served as a Board of Trustees member for 20 years and served as president for several terms. And whereas during his tenure on the Board of Trustees, Mr. Mora oversaw with his colleagues the on-time and under-budget completion of the district's construction projects, fulfilling Weisburn's promise to rebuild the schools, including 4 new builds and 1 renovation. And whereas Mr. Mora's trademark was his service-minded and community-based approach, which proved especially valuable in decision-making during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas Mr. Mora brought a wealth of experience and valuable insight in the areas of business, facilities, finance, and project management. And whereas Mr. Mora acted as a gifted leader, committed public servant, and encouraging mentor to colleagues. And whereas Mr. Mora led every action together with the board with compassion for students and care for staff, never lost sight of his guiding role in our school community and beyond. Whereas Weisburn Unified School District believes Mr. Mora's unwavering service to the mission of the Weisburn Unified District during challenging times, including during the COVID-19 pandemic, serves as an example of selfless public service and pride in our community. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Weisburn Unified School District publicly commends and recognizes Mr. Israel Mora for his 20 years of service and dedication to the children, parents, and staff members of the Weisburn Unified School District. Adopted this 10th day of the month of February in the year 2022. Israel, you're the best.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Joanne. We want to add one more thing to that, a few words, and then we'll share something with you. Since 2002, you have served on this board, Israel. And I know we and Joanne all met before the turn of the century. How's that feel? We met when there was actually some upheaval in the district way back when. It led many of us to get involved, and how grateful I am for that. You've continued to be a gift again since the turn of the century. Got to throw that in there again. So 5 terms, 20 years, 3 superintendents, Anza, now 138th, Cabrillo and Dana, all K-8 schools rebuilt or remodeled. Success Learning Center born, Del Air CDC launched, 1 school demoed, the birth of Da Vinci schools, on which you also served on their board and have had incredible influence on building DV Science, DV Design, DV Connect, DVX, Innovation Academy, now Connect, Connect High School, College Credits, DV Rise, all touched by you and your influence and leadership. Unification happened under your watch. WEF was reborn under your watch. The name evolution process just recently begun on all 4 schools. And I think it's safe to say we have fewer portables on our campuses now than we did because of you. So Israel, you are 1 in a million. You have incredible business sense. You're a natural leader, financially adroit, insightful, a champion of the less engaged student, even though your own children were top performers, and a friend to everybody on this screen, and scores, dozens, scores, hundreds more. I like this line I came across that says, you may be succeeded by someone who takes the position, but you will not be replaced. It will be incredibly strange not having you on this board. Everybody take a look. This screen will never look this way again. So on behalf of the board and the district, thank you for your service, your innumerable contributions, only some of which have been mentioned so far. So on behalf of the board, Dr. Silvers, we'd like to turn to you and show that something you'll be receiving. But Dr. Silvers, I'll turn to you to share that if you would.
We're going to actually look at Wendy's screen, and Israel, I think, you know, in the interest of providing you something to fill with candy, in memory of the many days that you walked in, we wanted to provide a crystal bowl. And Dr. Goldman, you want to share it's hard to see. I'm sorry. Do you want to share the writing, or I can do it?
Yeah, please do. It's hard for me to read as well. So yeah, please do.
So Israel, sorry, I'm looking here. It says, and it has your name on there, 20 years of service. And it says, in recognition of exemplary service to the students, families, and the community of Weisburn. And again, it'll when it gets to you, it will be filled with candy.
or peanuts.
Or peanuts. Thank you, Israel.
Can I say something? Is this appropriate? First, once again, I want to thank my family who put up with me through all these years. As you know, it's not easy, and without their support, it wouldn't happen. So to my wife, Madi, and my boys, Agustin and Israel, also known as Sander, I thank them very much. Fellow board members, what can I say? This is a family I'm going to miss very much. And you mean the world to me. Joanne, you've been an inspiration and a wonderful partner, and we've had a great run. So Nelson, Roger, Neil, you know, you're all very special, and I hope that you continue the great work that you do. Also want to mention Dr. Silvers, Dr. Harbeck, Dr. Dougal, David Wilson. You've all been very special and always there for us. And, you know, you may not hear this enough, but you do it all for the students and the families, and you're all very special. Keep up the great work. And you know me, I'm not very verbose, so that's how I ride out into the sunset. Thank you all very much.
You got to hang out for the meeting, buddy, so we won't quite let you go. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Not necessary from the board, but just want to give that space if anybody wants it. All right. Well, Israel, again, love you, man. Thank you for all you've done. People don't know the thousands and thousands of volunteer hours that means over the years.
I just remember when we were running the first time, and we were so worried that our boys were, you know, being forced to be together. When we were writing flyers and stamping envelopes, and when the campaign was done and it was all over and we were actually serving, they were like, wait a minute, you mean we're not going to go to each other's houses every night anymore? We don't like this part. And what Ms. Schumacher mentioned earlier, we all remember those early days and how much we wanted to contribute and how much you have contributed over all these years, Israel. It started in earnest and it grew into one of the best ways a board member can be on your part in the way of serving the community and serving our students and our staff, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And one last thing that I should not have missed, and that's WFA and all the teachers and Liza in particular. Thank you so much. Your support has always been amazing and very helpful that we work so well together for the district. So thank you all very much. Mm-hmm.
In the over 150, I believe, years of our district as both a K-8 and a high school and a unified district, Israel is the third longest tenured board member in our history, which speaks to how unique his service is. So again, thank you. And we will now move on to 3.3, a special presentation, and turn to Dr. Silvers to introduce our presenter today.
I think we should vote on that resolution, right?
No, I was not going to allow us to let him go, I guess. So
I was actually going to read a different year, but I thought somebody would notice.
Yes,
your call, Neil.
Thank you for keeping, Roger. Thanks for keeping me honest. Wendy, please.
Mr. Banuelos.
Aye.
Dr. Goldman.
Aye.
Ms. Canetta.
Into the world you go, Israel. Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
And Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to 3.3, our presenter, Dr. Silvers.
Sure. So really excited to have a student presentation today. And, Dr. Goldman, I think you and I received an email from Dylan Booth, and he's the class president for 138th Street School. They were doing a study and a survey on school lunches. And so, he expressed his interest in advocating for the lunch program at 138th Street School, essentially for the district. And he shared that with Dr. Goldman and myself. And I had a chance to, the lucky opportunity to meet with Dylan and just have a conversation with him. So really excited to have him present to the board today on his findings from school lunch. Hey, Dylan.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. And I am very excited to share to you this slideshow that I made. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. School lunch survey by Dylan Booth. Who am I and why am I doing this? I am the student council president of 138th Street School, Dylan Booth. And in my campaign speech, I promised to work with the school board and try my best in making some of the school lunches better. Here's a clip of what I said that and the reaction that I got.
I also have been a class representative last year, so I know a little bit of what we want. For example, I know we all want better food at the cafeteria, so if I get elected, I will work with the school board to get better options.
I made a survey for the 138th Street School to participate, saying all of the school lunches and a scale for how much they like each food. The scale is a number set from 1 to 10, 10 being I love this and 1 being I hate this. About the survey. This survey I posted to all of the school about a month ago. Out of all the people who could have responded, we had 67 fifth graders, 21 third graders, and 19 fourth graders respond. In all, we had 107 students participate in this survey. Current lunch options. This is a graph of all the current lunch options and their average score out of 10.
Wow.
I hope to replace the 3 least liked foods with 3 new options. The 3 least liked foods at 138th Street School are the turkey sausage patty, which average scores is 3.6 out of 10, the egg and cheese bagel sandwich, which also average scores a 3.6 out of 10, and the Italian meatball sub, which average scores a 3.7 out of 10. These are some new lunch options that I also put in the survey. New options. These other options are from neighboring school districts in Hawthorne and El Segundo. The 3 most liked new options from neighboring school districts are chicken tenders, which average scores a 6.5, cheeseburger sliders, which average scores a 6.4, and a teriyaki rice bowl, which average scores a 6.3. Conclusion. I asked the school board to replace the 3 least liked foods with the 3 new options that most kids want. What is our next step to making this happen? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for that well-researched. And you didn't just create options, you went to neighboring districts to find what's real. Yeah, let's give him a hand for that presentation. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. Silvers, I guess I would turn to you, and Chartwells is our provider. This seems like some good ideas. Can we take them to them?
Absolutely, we will take it to Chartwells, and I'll definitely meet with Dylan again once we get some feedback. I'd also like to share, and Dylan, I don't know if you received input on this as well when you did when you were talking to students, but I had an email today from a parent, and because it wasn't a public comment, I'm not going to use the name, but just some really rational and reasonable concerns about vegan options for students as well, and in order to really include everybody and include different dietary restrictions and so forth, aside from obviously Dylan's well presented options, I think we should also take a look at maybe some vegan options so that all of our students feel included. So have some marching orders here and some to-dos, and I will bring back to the board some recommendations and or some solutions to this.
Well done. I have a couple of comments as well. Dylan, I wanted to say thank you for such a wonderful presentation. I love all the research that you did. Nutrition is incredibly important, and you taking the initiative to share your thoughts and polling all the other students is absolutely fantastic. I'd also love to get a copy of your presentation if that could be shared with the rest of the board. I didn't see some of those bars, but I was very interested in it. Okay. I want to see some more of the work that you've done. If you could share that with the board, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. As a politician, it's important to meet your commitments and not only make promises, but go back to your constituents and say, hey, I heard this is what you said, and I'm going to do what I can about it. So congratulations for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great job, Dylan. Well done. Let's make it happen, Blake.
All right.
Well, again, Dylan, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for sending the initial letter to myself and Dr. Silvers. You impressed us from the start, and you did not disappoint. So well done. I know it takes a lot of courage to stand up and do that, and you did it with flying colors. Well done, and you're on the road to making a difference here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
All right.
Dylan.
Bye.
All right, let's move to our item 3.
That's what it's all about, guys.
Yeah.
I just want to say I really miss having students coming to these meetings, and what a great opportunity for him to speak and for us to listen. So more of these are welcome.
Number 3.4, special presentation. No, 3.4, special presentation. And I'm sorry, Dr. Wonder and his team will have to follow that presentation because in comparison, no matter what they say. So Dr. Silvers, if you will introduce our guests.
Sure. I think we have a cadre of folks today, and so I'll really turn it over to Dr. Wonder, but I'm really happy to have Da Vinci Schools here today to present metrics. I had an opportunity to see this presentation or a similar presentation at their board meeting. I believe it was last week, but time flies. But nonetheless, I see Matt here, so welcome, Matt, and maybe you could just kick it off for us.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers, and to all of your points, Dylan's a tough act to follow, and feel free to talk about joining our data team. So thank you very much. Wanted to make 2 non sequitur comments before turning it over to Dr. Hahn and the team. Wanted to also acknowledge Israel. Israel, you have invested your very big heart and brain for over 20 years into Weisburn, with Weisburn, and for Weisburn. Your leadership and smarts leaves a tremendous amount of positive impact for the Weisburn community and well beyond. And while you have had so very many accomplishments over the past 2 decades, many of them have been talked about tonight, we all know your greatest achievement has been the positive impact you've created and ensured for thousands of children and their families. You have positively changed the trajectory for so very, very many. My second non sequitur is to Dr. Silvers. Just wanted to thank you for the innumerable hours you have invested into working with community organizations, Parks and Rec, and various advocates to ensure all of our students have great places to practice and play. So thank you to Dr. Silvers. So back on point, we thank you all very much for this opportunity to share a small slice of how we measure whether or not we are successfully serving students and families. And we think this is yet another way we can all work together to ensure K through career quality. Dr. Hahn.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Wonder, and thank you to the Weisburn Board for having us this evening. Special thanks to Israel Mora. I'm very grateful to you. If we could go ahead and share the presentation. Not sure who has that. Is it Gloria, is it you, or is Tech presenting the presentation deck?
I'm happy to share it. Give me just 1 second. I'm sorry. I thought Tech was doing it.
Great. We can just go to the next slide. All right, and just we'll keep it brief. We know we have a limited amount of time. This presentation really is to share a snapshot of the work that we're doing at Da Vinci Schools. We've all heard that quote, "What gets tested gets taught." It's not exactly the most enthusiastic of quotes. I think it's an old Peter Drucker variation of a quote. But really what we're here to talk about, and if you ever come to my office, you will see on my board, it says, how do we know if it's working? And that's really the spirit of what we're talking about tonight. Metrics really is all about how do we know it's working? That specific question. So most of our data that we'll be presenting to you is really focused on students. And we're going to talk a bit about where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going in terms of metrics or assessments. This again is just a snapshot of the kinds of assessments that we're using. We have internal assessment data that we're looking at that is expansive, really high level data, as well as really drilled down deeply to individual students. And we're making actionable decisions based on these data points. It's really an exciting time for us, and we're grateful to share with you. So I will turn it over to Dr. Allegra Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. If we could go to the next slide. So before we launch into the specific metrics that we selected to share with you, I just wanted to share a little bit about the principles that are really guiding the way that we're collecting and interpreting our data. We are very, very focused at digging really deeply at every level of our organization, at looking at ensuring that we are providing equity and diversity and belonging to all of our students. We are also really refining our practices and being able to identify and address any opportunity gaps that are, reflected in our data. And we're really proud to acknowledge that while we understand that achievement is, of course, of the utmost importance for our students' well-being is just as important. And so we have done a lot of work in the areas of collecting the different metrics that we need to ensure that we are understanding how our students are feeling about being at school and responding to that data appropriately. But ultimately, we really just want to make sure that we're collecting the data that's going to help put us in a position to guide our students into the type of future that they see and want for themselves. And moving along to the next slide, we really just wanted to be transparent about acknowledging that this work does not happen in isolation, that there are a whole host of people who are involved at bringing the work that you're going to see reflected in our data to life. And so just wanted to offer a really sincere thanks to the work that is done by our leadership team, by our colleagues in Weisburn, our industry partners, our school site councils, our higher ed partners, our parent advisory committees, and all of the other folks that are involved in supporting our students. Moving along to our fabulous data team.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see Dylan come to Da Vinci. I love all of his charts and graphs. I'm like, oh, I love it. He should be a student board member. We're going to have to recruit him for that because he's ready. We've got students that present to our board, and I'm looking forward to him aging in and joining us. But so Da Vinci data, we, as you know, Allegra and Jen have said, we look at academic and outcome data, things like CASP and MAP testing for English and math, and then grades and competencies as formative data at our school sites along the course of the year to see how kids are progressing. College and career readiness, are they ready to go off to college? And then once they're there, alumni data, we keep an eye on college enrollment and persistence. But also on the personalized learning and socio-emotional learning side and our culture side, we've always looked at Net Promoter Score as kind of a, and we'll talk about it tonight, as a metric of customer success or customer service. But we're expanding out and looking at counseling data and our counseling services and socio-emotional learning services. We're expanding into a new survey that we just launched last fall, which is really exciting, asking students a variety of questions. We'll take a look at some of them tonight as well, a wellness survey this fall, and we're launching personality and intelligence surveys this year through our Naviance program, which is our college and career program. So that's coming. I did want to highlight really quick the work of Chris Miller. He is building out a Da Vinci data hub where all of these kind of really pretty reports, you kind of see the thumbnails there, but giving our staff the ability to dive in and look deeper at everything from enrollment to attendance to socio-emotional learning to testing to signature practices. So that's available for our folks. Really briefly, the personality and intelligence assessments, I'm not going to spend a ton of time. We're working on that this spring as a way of having kids really explore their strengths and their passions, and then connecting them to their career and college pathways. So students will be taking, or have already taken actually, a personality assessment, which is essentially a modified Myers-Briggs test, where they're exploring their strengths. And then reflecting on careers that might be a good fit for them. And similarly with the intelligences, just different ways of learning. And we hope to be able to use, not only have kids connect those intelligences to careers and colleges, but also to be using it as a reflective piece internally, seeing how it impacts data, academics, any other pieces that we look at, and including that as part of the whole picture of the students that we serve. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Miller specifically to talk about some of our individual surveys that we gave.
Hello, I'm Chris Miller. I'm Data and Equity Coordinator for Da Vinci Schools. And before I jump into the socio-emotional data, I just want to say a big thank you to our counselors, because this wouldn't happen without them. They have individually entered interaction points with every student they've seen this year to track to fidelity who we are interacting with as a team and how we're supporting our students. And the first awesome data that we got back from over 3,000 entries was that we are equitably servicing the community that we are involved with. The distribution of service matches the demographics that Da Vinci serves in the greater area that we engage in. Good. As of last semester, we had 2,553 counselor to student interactions. We track this data weekly and send out an update to the whole counseling team that has school-specific information and district level or organization-wide level information. And we're up to over, I think it's 3,500 counselor-student interactions. And as of last semester, that breaks down to about 846 individual students have been seen and heard by a counselor. On average, it's about 24 students a day have had an interaction with the counseling staff, and the highest number of interactions, or the highest service, was socio-emotional interactions. So they're supporting those students in a wide variety of ways, and the four biggest ones were academic, college, there's an other category in there, and socio-emotional being the highest. Go to the next one. And we also, on top of that, the wellness survey, this was the first survey that we gave to our students. Gloria, if you want to just click one more. This was given to our high school students, and it was an equal distribution of turnout amongst 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. You can see down there in the bottom left-hand corner. About 1,200 students participated. That's about a 70% turnout rate for the schools that participated. And it came back with some interesting survey data. One was that 84% of our students knew where to go when they had an issue with either college, career, or self-organization, which is really good to know. And that 16%, when we broke it down, was for our 9th graders, which we're working on having them know where to go when they need help. But that's good to know that they know where to go to reach out. And anecdotally, we had a very interesting data point that 48% of our students, after coming back from a year and a half of at-home learning, they needed a quiet space on campus sometimes, just to chill out, for lack of a better term. And yeah, we're taking that in note and making things happen with it.
Awesome. I get to kind of just do a quick overview of the student survey. So we revamped our fall student survey last year to include questions from New Schools Venture Fund student survey, the core districts, the California core district student survey, as well as the Gallup Creativity and Learning survey. We asked students, parents, and staff questions about everything from high school outcomes, what their priorities are, to learning styles, learning experiences, cognitive skills that they see in their classroom, teacher encouragement. You see the big bubble there, and it's a 1 to 5 scale, where 5 is the highest rating and 1 is the lowest. But for us, the big highlights and takeaways were in diversity and inclusion and teacher encouragement. And every question, there's usually about 5 questions in a section. Every question in both of those areas was above a 4. So really feeling good about kids feeling like diversity, inclusion, and teacher encouragement are both priorities. And kind of another highlight was that we saw 3 or above in all area questions. So kids were responding very positively. And another highlight, most important school outcomes, kids really are focused on preparing for college and building self-confidence. Both things I think we also focus on at Da Vinci, so it's good that we're aligned with our students. And least important school outcomes for students were extracurriculars and standardized tests. Net Promoter Score is something that Da Vinci has worked with for years under the guidance of Dr. Dawn Brand. And it is a corporate customer satisfaction metric. So it asks parents if on a scale of 1 to 10, whether they would recommend Da Vinci to their friends or family. And what it does essentially is takes the positive, I can explain the calculation in just 1 second. I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry. But our overall Net Promoter Score was a 71.4 for this fall. So first of all, that score is excellent. It's in the dark green kind of bar underneath as compared to other corporate metrics. And the way it's calculated is it takes those 9s and 10s and then it subtracts out the detractors. So it kind of takes the total number of 9 and 10, those folks that are considered our promoters. It subtracts out anyone who answered a 1 through 6 who's a detractor. And then it actually divides by the total number. So those passes are kind of accounted for in the ultimate division. But what it tells us, a score of 71, is that we really have a lot of promoters, which is really fantastic news. And over time, we stay in that high range, which is also good news for us. So we track it over time nationally. Net Promoter Scores have been tanking over the last 3 years. They've seen drops by 10% a year over the last 3 years in some industries. Industries that used to average in the 60s are now averaging in the 20s, and Da Vinci is remaining high above 70. So for us, it's I think speaks to our work and the excitement that a lot of our parents have. All right, and now on to assessment data. I'm going to invite Mr. Miller back to talk MAP scores. Very
exciting as Net Promoter Score, but very, very, very important. This is what I'm always really excited about, particularly in the time that we find ourselves in. As we come out of a year and a half of at-home or distance learning, I don't think education as a whole has ever been more stratified in terms of student performance. So it's very, very important that for our organization that we look at these metrics and we know exactly where the students are. And MAP data is what our K-8 and our Connect High School have piloted. They are going through, and they've done this to Fidelity for the last 2 years, and it's showing good outcomes. You can see here, this is our K-8 data, and the blue bars are the amount of students, and then you can see the line going up is the performance level of math and reading for our students in K-8. And that's a good trajectory. We want to see that. We want to see those performance levels match the grade level, which is what they're doing. And 85% or 95% of our students K-8 took the diagnostic. K-12, we had all of our staff in the Connect schools engage in this in a meaningful way in professional development, and 85% of our Connect students are hitting their grade level targets. This is our high school, Connect High School. And this is the information that we're getting back. And it's really important to look at this, particularly given their model that they integrate college within the high school day itself, is that the team over there, and I just helped facilitate a PD yesterday with them, is that we want to see our 9th graders as soon as we get them to see how they're doing so we can support them in their reading and math outcomes so we can have a robust intervention system to get everybody across the finish line the same.
All right, and I'll steal the CASP data slide. This is CASP data from last year. We're frankly disappointed in CASP, the program at the state level. Only 25% of kids statewide took the CASP exam last year. It's a little higher for the high school. For 11th grade, it was a little over 40% in English and math, but not great turnout. And the state has told us it's not good data. They didn't give us any claim scores. They gave us nothing that's actionable. They told us specifically, you know, don't compare this to any other year you've seen. But I did want to highlight that the Da Vinci High Schools did CASP with the hope that it would be usable data. We saw above 90% participation rates at our sites, which is great news. So we implemented it to Fidelity, but we're also excited to start implementing MAP at our high schools and seeing that growth data over time from 9th grade and beyond, rather than waiting for this 11th grade metric that is unfortunately not going to give us a whole lot of actionable data.
Yeah. And as you can see, the theme of our presentation is triangulating data. We're taking all aspects of student performance and we're trying to find each student's journey. And the next kind of piece of that is grades. Grades at the high school level matter because they are in many ways a gatekeeper to college. And we want to track those numbers very importantly, or very closely, excuse me. And the numbers are good. These are not very big bars, but they represent tens of thousands of grade entries over the last 4 years. And what we wanted to see was how were we doing before we went to remote? And now how are we doing as we come back into in-person? So we wanted to see in-person to in-person comparisons, and that's 18-19 was the last full year we had, believe it or not. And the news is good. We have had the least amount of non-pass rates this year than we ever have. And more kids are passing classes than they ever had. And I think that speaks to the teachers' ability to pivot and meet the students where they are and support them where they're at, coming out of a very trying time in education for any student. Go on to the next one. And yeah, this is also amazing information about our Connect High School. They engage in college courses while they are engaged in their normal curriculum in high school. And the two big takeaways are 95% of all of our 9th graders successfully mastered a college assignment, and 40% of our 9th graders mastered 3 college courses last semester, which is outstanding. That is on top of their current high school curriculum. So it's pretty exciting stuff happening over there.
It's true. And early college is always a good segue to college and career readiness. So the last time we had a normal dashboard was, of course, in 2019. So I brought that data in as kind of the last state metric time, but all of the Da Vinci high schools were in blue or green that year. We saw huge gains in college and career readiness. So just a reminder for the board, this metric is kind of a combination of a bunch of different metrics. Students need to meet multiple points, whether that's A through G eligibility and CTE pathway completion, or college course passing, or passing their CAS, both their English and math CAS as proficient. But kids, it's kind of a mixed message, or I'm sorry, a mixed metric. But the good news is that we saw increases. We're in the blue and the green in both those areas, and we're still monitoring internally the data as it goes to the state, even though it's not being reported by the state with the same color coordination that they used to. But the schools are still in the high and very high status, so that's exciting news. College enrollment. This is an interesting metric. So back in 2019, our kind of last regular year of grads, we saw 87% of our students enroll in college immediately after high school. It's very high compared to the national average. We're about 23% above the state and 21% above the national average Aurora in 2019. But what's really interesting is the class of 2020. So this was our COVID pandemic class. And when college enrollment was tanking nationally, our kids still enrolled with an 82% that first fall in the pandemic, which is really exciting news for us. There's no state or national comparisons on this data yet. It's just our internal numbers, but really when you look at those kind of enrollment drops, 4.5% in 2020, another 3.5% of college enrollment in 2021. I mean, the fact that our college enrollment is still so high is very, very good news. And our college persistence data as well. So this kind of measures those kids that are the 87 and 82% of kids, whether or not they're staying in that following fall. The last comparative data is again, that same normal pre-pandemic year, that 2018 to 2019 crew. But our persistence rate was 92.4%, which is 16.2% above the national average for all college types, and 14% above for four-year schools and almost 25% above for two-year schools. So for all of our students, we're seeing college persistence as something that is definitely playing into their futures and hopefully their majors. All right, and with that, I get to turn it back over to Dr. Hahn, yes?
I think so, and I think Dr. Johnson and I will tag team on this one. I'll just start here by saying that we are learning a lot. We continue to learn, and this year you can probably see, based on some of our data, that we're in a transition. We have adopted MAP. Da Vinci Connect really piloted MAP at the K-8 and then extended it through the high school. We are so excited about MAP data. It is the kind of assessment tool that allows us to track longitudinally K through 12. So that's great news for us, and more to come on that in terms of achievement data. We're also excited just about expanding our pool of stakeholders. Of course, Weisburn is one of our key stakeholders and our partners in this work. So those discussions are critical. Dr. Wonder is leading a parent advisory group. We met with them this week. And we're getting a lot of great input and feedback about how we can continue to grow in this area. And as you've seen, we are measuring in every area. Our goal is to really take a whole picture approach for students. And you may know that at the state level, social emotional learning really isn't measured. There is a page on the CDE website. It is not measured. We are doing great work. We're out in front of that. And so a lot to be learned and grow in that area. And then of course, more tools, right? We know that career connected learning is really key for us. And we're looking at new assessment tools in that area. Measuring internships, for example, measuring the work with our industry partners. There are tools that we can use to really identify our metrics in that area. Very exciting work. All right, Dr. Johnson, take us home.
So in closing, just some things that are really guiding our path forward is that we want to, as Dr. Hahn had shared, just continue to engage in discussions with our stakeholders around our outcomes and the different assessment tools that we're going to use to measure, if what we're doing is working. Some really key areas that we are going to be looking at internally are our signature practices, our formative assessment practices, again, career readiness, and then also broadening our definitions of inclusion so that when we collect data from our students, we are asking them about all of the different identity markers that are important to them. And then also, really importantly, just continuing to engage in really deep conversation and collaboration with our Weisburn colleagues. Earlier this week, we had a really great articulation meeting about math, and myself and Dr. Ingram have been having a lot of really great conversations about aligning our SEL practices. And so we are just really excited and enthusiastic about all of the conversations and shared work that we're going to be doing into the future to support our students. So with that, thank you so much for giving us the time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Well, thank you very much. Fire hose, anyone? Really great data, guys. Really applaud the effort to continue to use data to make decisions. Any comments or questions from the board?
I have a couple of questions from the early charts. Thank you very much. Before I dig into questions here, thank you for a really crisp presentation and for keeping it moving. The charts are really easy to understand, and the data is really important. Some of the early data, I think, that Chris Miller was discussing had to do with counseling sessions with students. And I'm curious how much of the counseling sessions are self-directed, that the students actually come to the counselors, and what effort is made to reach out to the students who may not be comfortable coming out on their own. Because the data looks interesting, but I can't quite figure out how the counseling sessions are managed.
Gloria, do you want to help out with that one? She is the counseling expert. I know enough to talk about it, but Gloria does know a lot. They're both, and these are good questions. And we're in the early phases of collecting this data. And these are the questions. We just had our first PD for counselors, where they're setting goals with this information to see what actionable outcomes they want to have based off of the information they're inputting in there. But Gloria, go for it. You can answer that question well.
Yeah, so I think it's both. I think counselors do have regular sessions with students that are sort of appointment or regular ongoing counseling, and that there are counseling sessions where the kids seek counselors out. And also, you know, just being out in kind of the college experience, out in the senior classes, and being present, I think helps kids feel more comfortable, and the counselors are really working on that as well. I can't speak specifically to what the practices at each school are in terms of outreach, but I think it's an excellent question, and I'm happy to take that back to our counseling meeting and get an answer for that when we do it as our monthly meeting.
Having raised children myself, and knowing that some are more outgoing than others and more willing to share problems than others, I would be really interested, because it's such a formative time, obviously, for kids, that it's important to reach out to people who don't reach out on their own. And I don't know what the metrics are in terms of how many counselors, how many students per counselor, let's say, on an average sort of assignment base you might have. But especially now with social media being such a sort of good and bad thing as students go through life, I'm really curious what the self-directed sort of metrics are, as opposed to how we reach out to students in general. So anyway, thank you.
I do want to say one thing to that. It is, you asked the right question, and we do have an entire dashboard that's dedicated to students that haven't been seen yet. And we had our counselors dig into demographic information too. Is it the high socioeconomic that have the skills that are seeing the counselors? And if it is, how can we service the kids that need the most, but might not have the tools to ask the best for it? So that's really important. And thank you for bringing that up.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I have a couple comments. Just following up on Joanne's comments, I think COVID has made us be much more aware of mental health. And I say that to not just Dr. Wonder, but Dr. Silvers, that we all be paying attention to that in all our schools, and how to identify those kids that need that assistance. I don't know the answer. I hope you guys are better at it than I am, but you know, keep that focus and know that we are in unique times. I wanted to commend the Da Vinci team, Dr. Wonder, your principals and staff. You You know, we've created an amazing school with a lot of great learning and creativity. And there's nothing more enjoyable to me than to go to campus and watch the kids be engaged, and the interactions and the excitement, their professionalism, standing up and introducing themselves, and somebody would let you know what's going on in the room and walk you through it. A lot of little details that I commend the team. Keep up the good work. 10 years ago, you were the innovators. You were the ones that came up with a lot of what now everybody's emulating. So I will challenge you to what's next, right? What is the next great way of learning and teaching and keeping the kids engaged? Again, thank you all. You've been doing amazing work, and good luck, continued success.
Any other comments or questions from board members? All right, I'll just throw, if I may, learned about maps. I wasn't familiar with maps. I know we use STAR and of course CASP. So I don't know, this is probably a question to our team. Is there any correlation between maps and STAR? Can we quote unquote map them at all? And love to see the disaggregation of the data. Obviously would encourage more. I want to thank you. You actually forwarded that raw data to us. I got a chance to dig in a little bit on it, even further, some disaggregating, and especially on the NPS scores. Kudos to you, really impressive across the board in terms of by ethnicity, by background, by social-emotional status, really good scores across the board. So great job, guys. Thank you for this information. And Dr. Wonder, Dr. Hahn, Dr. Johnson, Ms. White, Mr. Miller, thank you guys very much. All right, well, we will again thank them and appreciate that insight, and move to from the board information 4.1. I'm actually going to break tradition this time, and I'm actually going to go first, if I may, because I'm going to share something that will give the opportunity for the board members to comment on or not as you see fit, and I'll get to that last. First, wanted to acknowledge that with Mr. Mora's sad departure, we do have an opportunity for a new board seat. As you know, we have had 5 candidates who have applied and thoughtfully submitted their applications. Interviews will happen in the coming week. And Dr. Silvers, when you share your insight, your presentation, could you please bring us up to date on the status of communication and planning and whatnot for that? Also, I'll turn to Dr. Silvers and ask you for this, not now, but in your presentation regarding masks. Thank you to those who have written us regarding your thoughts on all things COVID and masks among them. Just want to share out that all of us on the board are volunteers, and we ask for your understanding that we cannot respond to all the emails. We get very many, and we appreciate them, especially with multiple perspectives. We do read them. They influence our thinking. As such, Dr. Silvers and I individually have had many conversations here, and I know there's pending expirations and potential changes on masking policy from the state level and at the county level. And I believe, Dr. Silvers, if you can give us an update on that in your comments as well. 2 other things quickly. Refinancing of the bonds. Mr. Banuelos and I are meeting with Dr. Silvers and Mr. Wilson in the coming week with a bond refinance consultant. We've talked about this in prior board meetings, but the goal of saving our community over $5 million over the remaining life of the loan. So excited about that. Hopeful that will come to pass, and we'll see where interest rates are and the opportunity is in the coming week. And then finally, and this is the one I wanted to give the opportunity for the board to comment on. In our last meeting, we unanimously approved the recommendation from the Community Advisory Committee, the CAC, on school renaming to better represent our assurances and our inherent values. The next step, obviously, in the renaming process is to engage the community and the CAC again in considering new names. As this decision again falls to the board, and in speaking only for myself as a single board member, I believe there's a number of factors impinging on this decision that I wanted to share at this time. First, in the heightened, divisive environment we're all in, it's my belief it will be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to identify 4 new namesakes that virtually everybody will agree on and take pride in. Second, the desired messaging of inclusiveness is what we're all about. That's what started this whole conversation with a student bringing this to what was the former 138th Street School. Also, there's the increasingly competitive environment for call it student choice, where we can choose where we send our students to school. And thus, ironically, the comments about branding stuck with me from some of the comments from our speakers at our last board meeting. For example, it really gives credence to the name change. There's multiple Anza, Cabrillo, and Dana schools throughout California. There's nothing inherently unique about those names, but we do have unique aspects here. So I'd like to float this idea. The idea of neighborhood or geographical names that identify us, speak to our community pride, and put us on the map, quote unquote, in a branding perspective. For example, and I'm not married to these, but for example, Del Air Elementary, Holly Glen Elementary. I've had a number of folks reach out to me and share that they're very comfortable and familiar now with 138th Street School. So maybe we use street names. And Weisburn Middle School, ultimately leading to the Weisburn High School campus. Again, that branding, that community, that connection. Each is unique, it's endemic to our community, and I hope and I think sources of neighborhood pride. Again, I'm not married to any of these specifically, encourage explorations of other geographic or neighborhood alternatives. I just believe, and I'm especially hesitant, that namesake people will be able to be found as they're inherently divisive to one group or another. Those are my comments. You do not have to share any thoughts on those, but I wanted to share that first so you'd at least have the opportunity if you wish to. Mr. Martinez, let's turn to you and your board comments.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I just wanted to be kind of short and sweet here with regards to just a few comments to Mr. Mora. I just wanted to thank you for your years of leadership. I actually thank you for your years of leadership, for your service to the community, and obviously your dedication and commitment to the kids. I mentioned this earlier in a previous board meeting or two. Both you and Joanne allowed me to run with you many years ago, and I'm always very appreciative, and I've always considered, obviously, both of you as mentors, and I just thank you again for everything that you've done over the years. I think it was well captured today, and I just wanted to keep it short, and I'll say I'm going to miss the troublemaker on the board. So best wishes to you, and obviously Maria and Sandra and Augustine and your family, Israel. Neil, with regards to the renaming, I'll just mention this from my perspective. I certainly understand the mindset in terms of geographical, probably the safest manner, and my mindset is probably there in that regard. However, I want to respect the process that we have in place. There's a committee that we look to come up with that. I've always felt that at the end of the day, these schools belong to the community, and we went through a process that I think it was a very good process that really represented the community at large. And I always say that, remember, this started kind of with student-led efforts that obviously from there grew, and we followed the board policy process that indicated the community advisory committee would have an opportunity to really engage in this process. I think it's been a very good process. In listening to the comments of the community, I just don't know if we're going to be able to tackle all the names at once. Do we do it one school at a time, with 138th being the priority, and along those lines, we're just tackling so many issues at the same time right now. So, but where I stand on this is, I really want to just continue that process that we've engaged. I think it's been a good process, and I have confidence in that advisory committee.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Banuelos.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I do have a few comments today. First comment is there is a meeting for an update on the Career Technology Education Studio that is in the design process over at Da Vinci Schools at the Weisburn High School campus. There's a meeting tomorrow, Friday, where SVA Architects is going to be presenting some of the options. Still very programmatic or schematic design options in terms of locations, feasibility study, things like that. I will be attending that meeting tomorrow. It is, I believe, at 1 o'clock, and I'll have a future update for the rest of the board once that meeting occurs. Next comment, I wanted to share a little bit of personal thoughts and comments here and notes of appreciation for Israel Mora. In the last couple of board meetings, I focused on comments of a lot of your accomplishments and participation with regards to being on the Weisburn board and on the Da Vinci board. Today, I want to focus a little bit more of my comments on your personal contributions, help and support that you've given me. When I first joined the board, you were one of the obviously a sitting board member for being on the board for 20 years. I will always remember your welcoming thoughts as a new board member. It's a steep learning curve. There's a lot of history, a lot of information to digest, a lot of acronyms, you name it. There's just it could be a very daunting task to just get acclimated with what it truly means to be a board member and to serve our community. It is not just showing up at 2 board meetings a month, as might be the perception at some points. But your guidance and wisdom have always helped me in terms of learning how to be a board member, how to effectively communicate. And for that, I will always be appreciative. Your open candor, your direct conversations, although maybe in a joking manner, oftentimes it was not. But above all, it was always respectful. And I never for a moment have ever doubted that you have our students in our community at heart. You were very frank, very direct, but it allowed us to move forward and to ensure that we were having the right conversations at the right moment. So for that, I will always be appreciative. I will always thank you for that. And you become a lifelong friend. So thank you for all your contributions. I really, really appreciate it, Israel. And I'll see you walking around the neighborhood. Thank you, Israel. Last comment, I do want to just some brief comments here. Neil, you posed a question for the board and with regards to the naming. So I would like to see us maybe have a conversation and maybe some guidelines. I'm not sure. I think there's already an initial email that went out for the renaming committee. I would like to see what the advisory committee comes up with in terms of what their naming suggestions would be. I'd like to keep an open mind in terms of the different areas and kind of what the community is kind of leaning towards. I'd also really like to see students and what their thoughts are with regards to naming or if it's geographic. I know at the very beginning when we started 138th Street, the name of one individual was really brought out, and that's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I think there is an opportunity here to, and some thoughts as to possibly have names. I personally would be very open to exploring naming and having people's names that are representative of our community and some of those values. I realize it could be a challenge, it could be tough, but I wouldn't want to look away from it because it's a challenge. I think we stand at a watershed moment, and who knows, maybe it's a mix of geographic areas and names. I would very much be open to both. I don't think I'd rather not close and say I'd only want to see geographic or people's names at this time. I'd like to see what the committee and the students come up with and go from there. That's all I have.
You bet. Thank you very much. We'll turn to Ms. Canetta.
Hi, thanks everyone. Once again, Israel, I think I've said a lot about how much I value you as a person and how much we value you as a fellow board member. One of the things about how you contribute is that your contributions are so personal. You look at people, you think about people, you understand what people are saying, not just the words, but what they mean. Education and families are very emotional and very special relationships, and you bring yourself to those relationships. And I think that's one of your strengths as a board member, as a human being, and you served in that way. That's very generous. You made yourself very vulnerable to the community, to staff, to all of us. And that added so much value because in turn, we learned how to be vulnerable also, and how to be ourselves and personal with others. So thank you very much for that. I want to mention something about the Da Vinci briefing this evening. I was intrigued by the concept of K to career. We usually go K through 12, but the term this evening of K to career was, maybe I hadn't heard it before. And I really, really like that. I think it represents as a district what we want to offer to our families and our students. I really like the goal that was mentioned this evening of the articulation, you know, continuing to work on articulation between the elementary grades, the middle school grades, and into the high school grades, and then into the college education that we're offering our students as well. I really appreciate that. And I welcome and continue to welcome, I guess, the opportunity to serve with those concepts in mind. I also, in terms of naming our schools, could we get more controversial than trying to pick names for our schools? I think what Roger said is important, that we want to offer the opportunity to students and community members for suggestions. It'll be interesting to see how much agreement we have. In the end, it'll be up to the board to make those decisions. So we want to be open-minded, and we also want to be forward-looking. So, and I appreciate your comments, Neil, this evening as well. Israel, I'm really sorry you're not going to be here for these discussions, because I think you could help ground us, which is also one of your strengths. So, and I also want to say I appreciate everyone's kindness and patience as I come back kind of into the real world after the death of my sister in January. It's sure all of you have experienced loss, and somehow you just keep going. It's kind of interesting. I think that's how we all settle those things for ourselves. So I appreciate everyone's patience and thoughtfulness and big generosity and kindness. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Joanne. Mr. Mora, a man of few words, but here's your final words, my friend, that say what you will.
Just a special thank you, Joanne, fellow board members. Really appreciate it. You know, I'm very proud of our accomplishments, of Weisburn's accomplishments in the 20 years. And you know, it's been a pleasure to serve the community. It's been a pleasure to work with you and serve with you. I forgot to mention one very special person who, without her, I'm not sure our district would run, and that's Wendy Sabaki. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate you. I'm gonna miss you coming over for me to sign paperwork. I mean, that would make my day. So, you know, everybody take good care, and I won't be far, and I'll pop in and pester you on a regular basis. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Israel. And we do have a need to have a dinner together and recognize you in person so we can really have that moment. So more to come. Love you, and thank you for everything. Let's now turn to our cabinet and the chief business official, Mr. Wilson.
Dr. Goldman, just want to first out, thank you, Mr. Mora, for all your service. It's truly been a pleasure to work with you over the last 13 years during my tenure. You're always just a class act guy, and I know you'll truly be missed, not only by me, but everybody that you've impacted. So thank you for your service. Truly appreciate it. Other than that, I have no comments tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Dugal.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Good evening, everyone. Do want to start off with my thank you to Mr. Mora for your years of service. Although I've only known you for a short time, you've definitely made an impact on our district and all of us here at the district office as well. So thank you. Wanted to give a quick update, of course, regarding COVID. I'm sure we've all heard the new California state guidelines may be going into effect on February 15th based on Governor Newsom's new regulations or health protocol. And it's mainly impacting businesses. So I do want to make it clear that masking is still going to be required at preschools and daycares and K-12 schools. So want to make sure that that is very clear to our community and to our board members and all district staff, is that at this time, masking in schools is still going to be required. We have heard from Los Angeles Department of Public Health that they may be updating their protocols based on various multiple metrics. And one of those, or a couple of those, is going to include test positivity rates as well as hospitalization rates. And so they have not announced what those new protocols will be, but there may be updates coming. I do want to stress that we have limited transmission on our school campuses and the spread of COVID through just multiple layers of strategies that have included, first off, just screening and response testing. So the 4-day-a-week fulgent testing, along with response testing we have on our campuses for those students that are either symptomatic or have been exposed. We also are ensuring compliance with both isolation and quarantine guidelines and contact tracing. And so, if students have been exposed and meet the quarantine guidelines and they need to quarantine, and students obviously that have tested positive had to isolate. And of course, masking. And the masking may change, right, based on the new guidelines from LADPH. As of right now, they still will be required on school sites. But we have been told that once again, the masking guidelines could change based on vaccination rates, based on the availability of the antiviral oral medication that's coming out, and just seeing how many more are able to get it and how quickly. And then obviously just additional metrics of positivity rates and hospitalization rates. And so do stay tuned. We do need to follow these guidelines right now. And, as they change, we will update everyone and be ready to implement those new changes as they come into effect. That is it for me.
Dr. Dugal, question with regards to COVID and our protocols. Are they, what we're hearing to right now from the LA County Department of Public Health, are these guidelines or are they mandatory requirements? Along those lines, a specific question is as it relates to physical education when students are doing activity out in the field. I mean, I walk out of my house and I see our students actively engaged, running around the Dana fields, right? And other activities over at 138th as well. And they're wearing masks. Are we under a mandate to wear masks during physical activity, or is it a guideline? What are we under, like in terms of mandatory versus guideline?
Perfect. So a couple things. First, there is a health officer order, right, which must be followed. And in terms of masking, we are currently required to mask outdoors due to the surge, right? And this is where I refer to DPH may be changing guidelines when it comes to masking outdoors, but they were changed recently in January with the Omicron surge. And on top of that, there are specific guidelines when it comes to physical exertion and sports. And so those will also be revisited at that time, and it may change.
Okay. And right now, is physical education mandatory? Can a student opt not to participate in the physical activity and not get a failing grade for their PE?
I'll let Dr. Harbeck answer the instructional question.
And I would say that we always accommodate should there be a request.
Okay.
Yeah, with an alternate.
I guess as questions come in from parents, I mean, I ask these questions because I'd like to make sure for those that are listening and parents that we do welcome those questions. If they have questions for their students, if they have a specific safety health concern, to make an accommodation. We're not looking to be punitive in any way with regards to the mask or any of these mandates. I do recommend for parents and people listening to the meeting, please reach out to us so that we can have a conversation and make a reasonable accommodation for your student. And I say our child because they do belong to us when they're in the Weisburn Unified School District. We take a lot of responsibility for them and want to make sure that they're healthy. Obviously, physical education is incredibly important. I'm not advocating for students not to participate, but I want to make sure that they do it in a safe way as well. We did receive a very disturbing email from an accident that a student had while having physical activity, wearing a mask as well, right? So I want to make sure that everyone understands that we're here to help and support and address those needs. So if we can, I know you make yourselves available, but I think it's important to have this conversation here in open session and just let everyone know that we do welcome those comments. So thank you both for addressing the questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Dr. Durgle, before you leave, do we have any indication when we may hear from LADPH?
We don't. They did say next Wednesday, maybe. And the reason for that is like I mentioned, one of the metrics they're using is the hospitalization rate has to be 2,500 or below. That's still a lot of hospitalizations, but it needs to be below 2,500 for 7 days in a row. Today was the first day that we met that metric. Or actually, I'm sorry, yesterday, 2,500. So day 7, right? That's why Wednesday, we may get new guidelines should the hospitalization rate continue to decrease for the next 7 days. So we do have to meet that metric for 7 days in a row.
Helpful. Thank you very much.
Dr. Goldman, too, if I could add, I mean, one thing that Dr. Ferrer said, you know, when we met this morning as cabinet superintendents across LA County is really the focus on, you know, community health and our need to take a look at, you know, neighboring communities and people in our communities who may be marginalized, not have voice, you know, maybe not exert their voice to school districts. And I say that because, you know, ultimately we're seeing a lot of our, you know, a lot of students, you know, our Black and brown students who either are not vaccinated or don't have some of the resources. And there's disproportionate numbers of COVID-19 infection across some of our marginalized populations. And so, you know, I think that as we make decisions about masking, as we make decisions about vaccinations and about testing, about bringing more volunteers and people onto campuses, just knowing our student population is important, and also making those sort of prudent decisions about that operational risk that bringing students back on campus does. So, sorry, that's just my a little bit of added context.
We are here to take care of our students. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Silvers. Thank you, Dr. Dugal. Our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Harbeck.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I also want to offer my fond farewell to Mr. Mora. You know, I have never known this board without you in all these years. You've been such a great support. But I also want to thank your family, because we know no one flies alone. And without the support of your family, you know, and all the hours you put in. So I just want to extend that to your wife and your beautiful children, and also to thank you. We'll be missing you so much. Tonight, I'm going to report on just 2 things. We have begun our LCAP process. This is the first year of our 3-year plan. We had a survey go out this past January to our family and our families and our staff. And we also have started PTA meetings in February to review where we are mid-year. So those have been really successful, and enjoyed talking to the PTAs. We're also going to talk to a student cohort over at Dana, which is always great, our 7th and 8th graders. This year, we're required actually to come back to the board and give a mid-year report. So we'll be back at our next board meeting with that presentation. Looking forward to that. Real quickly, I want to inform the board that we have restarted the adoption process for our elementary and middle school science resource adoption. We started this back in 2019-20 and paused when we had to go to school closure. So we've come back first semester. We went out and surveyed the staff to gather their priorities and set our lens, align this to our assurances. And Joanne Michael went out to all the campuses on separate occasions to put out the possible resources we might look at. So staff was able to come in, take a survey, touch and look at these different resources. We've also been able to identify a committee to do the actual piloting and help us make some good decisions here. So they are in the midst of that pilot. I just want to congratulate them on that in March, in February and March. So we have representation from all 3 elementaries. The middle school is running a separate but aligned adoption process because their needs are a little different. In May, we'll be coming back to the board with our committee with our recommendation and hopefully a successful adoption. So looking forward to that. And in April, we want to reach out again to our parents and our students and all the teachers to make sure that everybody is on board with this adoption. So that's where we stand. And that's my report. So thank you.
Dr. Harbeck, and just this may be obvious, but I'm assuming they're connected to NCSS and will be integrated and such.
Absolutely. And you know something, having Joanne Michael support this process has been tremendous. She's our science TOSA, so knowledgeable. We always have an expert in the room.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Silvers, our superintendent.
Good evening. I just a couple of things. First, I want to say that on the next board agenda, I'm going to ask the board, probably the four here, to approve 12 new portables for our school sites. I couldn't help myself. No, Israel, thank you very much. You know, I got to have an opportunity to you know, really benefit from your mentorship, and you know, I definitely look forward to lunch and coffee, and maybe even swinging the tennis racket a little bit. But certainly have really valued you for, you know, 14, almost 15 years. So thank you for everything. And I think that you know, the community spoke about you today, and have sent emails and just fond memories of your service here. So thank you very much for everything that you've been and meant to the district and to the students. I think that's really the key, is what people have said, is your dedication to students. So thank you for being an advocate and a champion of students. Wanted to, so I think we addressed the mask. Dr. Goldman, I'm looking at a couple comments here. I think we at least for now, addressed the mask item. I did want to talk a little bit about board selection. However, before I do that, I do want to share that the first week of February is generally regarded as National Counselor Appreciation Week. And so, you know, in light of that, I wanted to share a special thank you and just a sense of gratitude towards our counseling team, led by Dr. Monique Ingram, you know, Megan Engie at Dana Middle School with Ted Okasinski, and the newest addition at Dana Middle School, Gabriel Perlman. We also have in our elementary schools, Rachel Yamada, Julie Walker, and Aaliyah Ellismar. And, you know, I just, we saw the Da Vinci presentation and the importance of these connections with students. And part of, as we built the program for counselors, was to provide all levels, all tiers of service to our students, you know, and to our families. And I just listed a long list of counselors that didn't exist, you know, 3 years ago and beyond. And that those people, those individuals that we're recognizing tonight, appreciating tonight, are people that directly serve students on a daily basis. You know, it's not about the supervision or dealing with logistics of the school, you know, the school day. It's really engaging with our families and with our students in a meaningful way on a daily basis. And for the record, the average student to counselor ratio in the state of California is right around 1 to 663. You can see different options across the, you know, I'm sure there's different proportions, but you know, one of the leading organizations quotes about 663 to 1. You know, with our addition of counselors, we're at about 1 to 357, and so doing pretty good there. I mean, obviously, you know, as funding comes in, we want to continue to look at our counseling programs and continue to be able to offer those services. But I just wanted to recognize publicly the work of those folks that I listed today. It's good work, it's powerful work, and it's meaningful work that makes a difference for every kid that walks in those offices. So thank you on behalf of the district, and certainly I'm sure on behalf of the students that you serve, to all of those folks today. Going to talk a little bit about board selection, and just a brief timeline. We were, as Dr. Goldman shared, lucky enough to have 5 candidates that have put in an application for school board trustee. We are going to be holding those meetings on Thursday, February 7th. I'm sorry, the interviews on Thursday, February 17th, 2022, starting at 4 p.m. and they'll be in the boardroom here in person. And it'll be run by, or it'll be, the panel will be this board, the 4 members of this board, and then I'll help facilitate that process for the board. So that'll happen on Thursday. There'll be some deliberations, timeline wise. I think we're going to have to discuss that and deliberate, you know, a little bit, or the board will have to discuss that and come up more with a sort of a final plan. But, you know, ultimately, you know, hoping to have a decision made sometime between the 17th and the 24th. Which is our next board meeting. So that's currently the plan. Definitely, you know, the process is underway. So that's that piece. Any questions on that, Dr. Goldman? Do you think I get the key points there for you? Okay. Also wanted to talk about just a brief renaming update. You know, we actually have, we paused a bit as the Omicron hit. You know, we had to really tend to the home front here and make sure that our students were taken care of and staff were taken care of. And we had a lot of other moving parts that were happening here. So we did pause a little bit. And I know there was some indication initially that we may try and have a meeting sometime in February of the Citizens Advisory Committee. We actually want to push that out to March, just so that it gives us some time. God gave us some time, or bought us some time, to be able to push past this initial surge, the Omicron variant. But we will in March pick this back up again. Objective number 2 in the renaming process is basically what this board discussed today, which is, you know, the type of name. It's you know, acknowledging that there's a couple options here for naming school sites as part of our board policy, and we'll go through a process of trying to narrow that down and bring this board as the next resolution, you know, the type of name that we'd want to name our schools, hoping that we could have a thematic approach to renaming our 4 schools, you know, if that's what the Citizens Advisory Committee decides or recommends. So we'll bring that back to the board. Again, probably that's a month and a half process, 2-3 meetings, but we're sort of playing that by ear, and we'll get that to the board and continue to update there. You know, again, want to just you know, thank the team here, the team on all of our school sites. You know, I want a special thank you to WFA and to CSEA for their support during this challenging time. I want to thank our parents, you know, our families, because, you know, it really does take a village. And I know that sounds cliche, but when we're asking students to wear masks every day, when our staff are, you know, wearing masks every day, and we're wearing masks every day, you know, there's challenges, and I understand that. And, you know, ultimately, you know, we don't make those decisions, you know, as Roger pointed out, and I think Dr. Dougal pointed out, you know, we're really listening to the health experts. We're taking the mandates from the health experts, and we're not turning we're not turning away from them. I mean, we have to, we're following them, and it's difficult and it's challenging. But we do believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. And I think it was clear in our call this morning with Dr. Ferrer that she sees a light at the end of the tunnel, and that, you know, Dr. Gilchek and LADPH and CDPH sees a light at the end of the tunnel. And so we're hopeful. You know, I think we've seen this light before and it faded out a little bit, but we're gonna hope to see this light, you know, and get to the end of it. So I thank everybody, you know, for the patience, for the flexibility, for the support, kind words that have been sent via email. And definitely want to do this together. So that's all I have tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. All right, let's get moving on our agenda. Minutes, item 5.1, regular minutes from the January 25th meeting. A motion, please.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
Give a second.
Thank you, Israel. Wendy, a vote, please.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye.
All right, although we can take many of these later in one fell swoop, each of these items, action items 6 general, require their own. Item 6.1, adopt resolution 21/22.13, allowing us to continue having Zoom meetings, needs to be approved every month. I can have a motion.
Have a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Subaki?
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mora?
Aye.
Item 6.2, approve memorandum of understanding MOU with Weisburn Faculty Association, our partners at WFA. Motion, please.
I'll motion.
You have a second.
Thank you both.
I want Dr. Dougal to just give a
please do
quick clarification on that.
Yes, this was our final MOU before we started negotiations, and this is specifically around middle school substitute coverage. I think I've explained to the board prior is that substitute coverage has been difficult, especially at the middle school with multiple periods having to be covered. And so We have increased the rate for until June 16th for both covering a regular day and a block schedule day at the middle school.
We very much appreciate the teachers in this role. Wendy, please.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye.
Item 6.3, approve renewal of memorandum of understanding MOU with Loyola Marymount University. Effectively.
Motion.
Thank you, Roger.
Second.
This is effectively, every year we do this same thing. We have just a question. Do we have this agreement with other potential feeder schools, if you will, other than Loyola Marymount? Not that that's not wonderful. I'm just curious if there's others in addition.
We do. We do have we have other universities as well that we have. We have not had any student teachers this year, but we do hope to get some more in the future.
That has been a valuable partnership over many years. So certainly want to acknowledge that.
Historically, too, Dr. Goldman, that's been USC. We've seen Pepperdine, we've seen Cal State Dominguez Hills, Cal State Long Beach, Phoenix. I mean, you name it. Pretty much, we're accepting of the support and wanted to support teacher candidates and other service provider candidates too.
Is just last thought here. Is there any additional outreach needed to make sure we do reach out to additional providers?
Generally speaking, we do that outreach and we get pretty good. I think there's just been a little bit of a lag in COVID. So if we don't get the numbers that we're used to, we'll definitely do some outreach, but pretty sought after. I think we do a really good job with our student teachers. Our master teachers do a really good job. So I mean, I don't know. Let us judge as things go on. And if we need to reach out, we will.
Yeah, please keep us apprised. A vote, please, Mr. Bakke.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving to action items, facilities. We 7.1 to 7.5, if someone is so inclined.
You have a motion.
Thank
You
you.
have a second.
Thank you, Nelson. Any questions or comments here or updates?
No questions.
Hearing none, Mr. Bakke, vote please.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye.
Sorry.
Actually, I just wanted to say before we move on that old Dana is gone. That was such a commitment. I mean, we're just like, I here, but when you think about what we did, this was a promise from a long time ago. And everybody on the board and on staff, it's actually been accomplished. So I'm happy for the community, and I think we picked a good set of contractors, and I'm happy to say that it's done.
Yes. Operated within contingency. Thank you. Indeed.
Dr. Goldman too, I don't know if, but Wendy, we do have April Thompson, right, online. I don't know if there's any questions about the, what is it, 7.5, the Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Goldman, you had asked me to look into this too a little bit.
Yes, indeed. From
so we asked April to join us. Do we just want to quickly bring her over and just give a quick overview of where we are with this?
Sure. Let's do that.
Slide April Thompson over, please. Hi, April.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed learning more about your district as I've been on your meeting, and Israel, you sound like an incredible person, and the board miss you. Just a real quick overview on the CalShape program. I know you guys have already had a long meeting, and I certainly don't want to keep you too much longer. Really quickly, the CalShape program is run by the California Energy Commission. It really was born out of inequities that came to light through COVID, and the Energy Commission saw the need for our schools in California to how important it is to really have clean water, clean ventilation systems, more energy efficient systems throughout our schools. So they developed the AB 841, which is now called CalShape, for school districts to utilize funding for upgrades in plumbing as well as ventilation systems. And I've been working with Dave with your district on a ventilation application that we submitted. Right now, the first funding cycle is for what they call underserved communities, and you had one school that was eligible, and that was De Anza. And we submitted an application for the assessment and maintenance pathway under the CalShape program, which is really the first step in this program. What we're approved for right now, what we've received a notice of proposed award based on that application. And it's for, it takes a deep dive into your ventilation systems at that site, and will generate an assessment report and recommendations for repairs or maintenance that might be done to bring those systems into good repair. And then it also comes with the program, this award specifically comes with a 20% contingency if there are some repairs that are recommended after that assessment that's done, short of replacement. And then that assessment report, we hope, will also recommend units for replacement. Now the CEC developed this program very quickly as far as state funding programs go, and so we did receive a good amount of guidelines for this first funding cycle, which ended on January 31st. The CEC, immediately after closing that first funding cycle, released a notice saying that they were going to have a workshop. It is next week for stakeholders. So I will definitely be on there. I have my list of comments and feedback after going through this process with your district and their clients. And we're really anxious to see what the guidelines will be for the following funding cycles that will come out of this. Are there any questions?
One thing Dr. Silvers and I had talked about, April, was other things King is working on. I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that at all with us, but I know there's other things that you guys are trying to find for us. I don't know if that's throwing you a curveball. Don't worry about it.
It's a little bit of a curveball, but because there are some other members of my team who are definitely more knowledgeable on the items that you're probably asking for, but I can certainly take notes and forward those questions to my team, and can forward answers to that to the district, and or come back at a later meeting if you would like details on other
Yeah,
services.
I appreciate that. I know you're trying to find other opportunities for us as an organization, so we appreciate that. And looks like there's no questions, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving to action items. 8.1 and 8.2, a motion, please.
Did we vote? I'm so sorry on the.
Oh, forgive me with all that. I thought, did we not vote?
We voted.
Yeah, we voted.
Vote on that one.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Now 8.1 and 8.2, consultants agreements. Motion, please.
I'll motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Okay.
Thank you. And Dr. Silvers, can you just give us an update on 8.2, because that's really a continuation under a different name, and I wanted to make sure we all knew that.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, I actually am going to probably kick that to Eileen. Dr. Harbeck, did you want to just share? I know this was the Talking Teaching Network, who've been partners with Weisburn for, 14, 15 years, maybe.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And this is the continuation of that partnership. They actually are dissolving Talking Teaching Network. And this is a way of doing that they can still put a name on it. Dr. Bill Saunders will still be our consultant, still be part of this. Dave has always been with him on the team along with Kevin McCarthy. So it's a trio. They're using Dave as the main name on this agreement, but our partnership continues. They run a lot of the how-tos, which we use as our planning time. They work with Dana Middle School, and they also work with the principals in a unique setting once a month called Principals Work Group.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now we need a vote.
Mr. Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye.
Thank you.
Action items consent 9.1 to 9.4. Can we have a motion, please?
You have a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you both. Dr. Dougal, if you'd be so kind as take us through, we have a new format in the board packet this week, and it'd be nice to help us kind of walk through this a little bit, please.
Correct. So if you look at action items consent, usually section 9 is pretty long. It lists all of the different personnel action items as different items. And so we have consolidated that into a certificated and a classified sheet. We took kind of lead from some of our local districts, as well as how Board Docs also does their sections. And so you can now see that all of the certificated assignments, so whether it's to approve employment, ratify changes, accepting resignations, as well as approving additional hours, they are all listed out in tables. It'll give you employee name, where they're working, if there's any funding sources attached to it, as well as for the additional hours, you will now see the specific reason for those hours. And so we hope as we move forward, this is a more effective way for not only the board, but the community to see our personnel action items that we take each month.
And this also adds efficiency to the cabinet and Ms. Subaki, right?
That's correct.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
Great. Not without its own merit. So yes. All right.
I appreciate the funding sources that you've added to this list of information too. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions on 9.1 through 9.4? All right, Ms. Subaki.
Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
And for the last time that I get to say this, my wonderful Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, before we conclude our agenda this evening, upcoming dates, let's take a look there. Dr. Silvers, take us through.
Yeah, I actually want to point out a couple things. One is I forgot to mention something during my report, so I'm going to just mention it now, and hopefully we'll get this in the record. And that was on last Friday, the Department of Education, California Department of Education, actually released an initiative for dual language immersion programs in California. It was a $10 million initiative. It actually has it's one of the keynote funding opportunities for school districts, in California. And the idea with this $10 million is to award about 25 schools or school districts the ability to initiate and or expand dual language immersion. Just knowing how important biliteracy is and bilingual education is, this is a big push in that direction. And so it's been the first time in a long time that about a decade or so that the government has provided this kind of funding to school districts, or some level of substantive funding to school districts for dual language immersion. And this grant is called the DLIG. So we have another acronym to remember, but we're going to take a look at this grant very seriously. And I think we heard the public comment from Dr. Paul Jimenez, and the interest in Spanish. We know the Ni Hao, also Mandarin, is sort of taken root at ANZA as an after-school program. We would like to explore this as well. So see if we can sort of consolidate and make for a better program here. So more to come on that, but just wanted to share that publicly with the board today. And then a special meeting, we have a joint board meeting that we are working on, and it'll be posted as a special meeting likely within 24 hours after we finalize the agenda. I'll work with Dr. Goldman on that, but that's scheduled for Tuesday, February 15th at 6 o'clock. And that will be here at the district office in the black box. And a family dance night will be Wednesday, February 16th at 5:30. Those are fun to watch, you know, these virtual dance nights. And then we have President's Day off. It's the 21st, and a regular meeting on February 24th. I wish I said I like the Rams, but I don't. But for everybody else out there who may like the Rams, we have the Super Bowl this weekend. So I'll let you all say go Rams.
Go Rams, go Rams.
That's it.
All right. To the board, I don't think we need the cabinet. The board, we do need another brief closed session. So let's re-adjourn at 8:05. Are there any other agenda items or issues people want to bring up the board before we conclude this meeting? All right, at 8:01, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, everyone. Thank you, Israel Mora.
Thank you.